Welcome to the Sisters in Crime Writers Podcast. Everyone has a unique writing journey, so join us for conversations about those journeys from the writers themselves. Hello, this is Julie Henricus, the Executive Director of Sisters in Crime, and I am really delighted to welcome Heather Haven to the podcast this week. Heather wound up in Manhattan for a time. Then she wrote ad copy and commercials for No Soap Radio during the day while working the Broadway theater in the wardrobe department at night. In those youthful days of holding down two jobs, she also wrote comedy acts and had one-act plays produced at the famed Playwrights Horizon. Once, she even ghostwrote a book on how to run an employment agency. She learned more about that business than she ever cared to know. She is the award-winning author of the Alvarez Family Murder Mysteries, Persephone Cole Vintage Mysteries, and several standalones. Her proudest award, however, is for Murder Under the Big Top, winner of the Silver IPPY Best Mystery thriller. As a daughter of real-life Ringling brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus folks, she used her mother's intimate knowledge of the golden age of the circus to create the standalone noir and mystery. Heather's been married to singer-musician Norm Meister for 40-plus years. He sung his way into her heart. They currently live in the foothills of San Jose with their two cats, Daphne and Niles, and an orange tree. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's just great to be here, Julie. Thank you for asking me. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are.
Well, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast. We were on a panel together at Left Coast Crime, and you made me laugh. And so I'm like, oh, the world needs to meet Heather. So thanks for being on the podcast. And I'm going to start this conversation the way I always start it. When did you say to yourself, I want to be a writer?
I always was a writer, and I didn't really know it. I was so young. At 9 years old, if there was any song that didn't have lyrics to it, whether it really did or not, but I was a kid. So if I didn't hear them, I would, and I would sit down and write lyrics to them and then run to my mother and read them. And then she would cry because, moms. And then also I just started writing short stories and stuff. And I didn't think about it. I never gave it a thought. I just have done it. But what changed my course of history for me was when I read my first Nancy Drew mystery book, as it is almost with every mystery writer. Yeah. And I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to write. I was 9.
So, well, let's talk about the evolution of you as a writer, because you're also a playwright. You wrote comedy sketches. So dramatic structure sort of was built into your DNA early on. But tell me about how you developed the craft for writing a novel.
Well, a lot of it is trial and error, or was trial and error, but I also tried to learn from the best. I would read books by, not just Nancy Drew, but, I read Ernest Hemingway. In fact, one summer I spent down, I was 16, every single book that he wrote. Of course, you can't retain it in that short amount of time. No. But what I did was I learned how he did his craft. And so I would pick up other people's crafts. And then I actually, like with anything else, if you're going to take up tennis, I took lessons. I went to school, I took lessons. And I think you can't really be taught the talent of writing, but what you can learn is how to use it and to manipulate it and make it work at its best. And I think that's what I learned from a lot of the writing classes that I took.
And I think that's such a good point, that talent, you can develop some talent. Some people are born with it, but you developing the craft
Yeah.
tell the stories is actually the work, because
Yes.
the most talented people in the world, if they don't have the story structure, or they don't get the voice right, or they don't like deliver on what the book promises, then they're not going to succeed.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, civilians, as I'm going to call them, look at me as if I'm doing something magical. And it's really not magic. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's a craft. You learn how to do it. You develop it. You work at it. It's just like playing tennis or anything else. And you're going to have the Arthur Ashes out there, and you're going to have the clunks like me, because I don't play tennis very well. But so it really is a craft. And if you're good and willing to work and put the time in, anyone can really write. And I think they should. I think everyone should try to write.
Yeah. I mean, and we're going to talk more about this. Writing is one path, being published is another path.
Yes.
You control your writing. And I agree. If anyone has at any part of their soul a whisper of, I want to write a book, then for heaven's sake, join Sisters in Crime, learn how to write a book, and do it, because you need it's going to be fulfilling in ways that you don't really imagine.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, joining Sisters in Crime, I'm glad you brought that up. I know we're probably talking about it a little too early, but they really helped me believe in myself. I had friends that I just loved, like Terry Shanes, took me under her wings. Camille Minicino, I don't know if you know who she was. Yes, I loved Camille. They all helped me. I find writers, especially mystery writers, the most giving and helpful people I've ever met. So when I joined Sisters in Crime, I really had sisters. It was wonderful. And I went to the next level of my writing that I didn't even know I could go to. So anyway, yes.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good point, because you need community. It's surprising as a writer, but you came from theater, so about what that is, about the community, and also, as somebody also worked in Deadline, I think one of the benefits of having a theatrical background is you understand deadlines, you understand budgets, you understand collaboration in a way that it's hard to explain to people who haven't been through that process.
Right. I had to learn it when I was at No Soap Radio. I had to learn collaboration very early. We would go in early in the morning, like we had to be at our desks by 8, and we would be given an assignment. We would all sit around a table. It was a round table, and we had an assignment for a commercial, because that's what No Soap Radio did, was humorous commercials. And we would begin to write, and whether you felt like it, whether you had a headache, whether you just were off your game that day, it didn't matter. You had to contribute. And it was always the best person's idea that succeeded. So what I was taught very early on, because I was like 23 when this happened, was that it's the idea. It's the work that is the most important thing, not the person's ego. And I think when you learn that, you are really ahead of the game, because if someone gives you or me an idea that's better than mine, I'm going to take it. And I think you need to learn those kind of things and put your ego aside.
Yeah, you do need confidence, and you do need some ego in order to move forward. You have to believe in yourself. No one cares about your writing career like you do.
Right.
But I agree. Hubris is not a good trait for writers.
No. Right. I hadn't thought about it like that. That's right. Yes. Oh, good. Yeah.
Well, and so I actually find that, again, fascinating, the idea of writing funny commercials in a group, but how much hard work that must be. I mean, to keep churning them out and doing this, and is it funny? And I have no idea what's funny anymore. And, yeah.
Right. Sometimes you say something, and when it comes out of your mouth, you go, oh, did I just say that? That is the stupidest thing. But I learned from the best. And I'll be honest, I did not work with Woody Allen, but I was peripherally involved with him because he was very much alive in the New York scene then. And his wife at the time, Louise, did work for us. So we would hear stuff that he would say through her. And it was, once again, very collaborative and enriching for me. I really learned a lot. There's nothing like being taught by people who know their stuff. And when you're willing to learn that, when you're willing to go there, the world will open up to you.
So when you decided to move to writing novels, and you'd said that you were Nancy Drew, but was it always going to be mystery for you?
Yes, and I have a sad, funny story about that. Actually, I've worked with one of the streaming companies, and they had asked me if I could do a romance novel, and I didn't know because I'd never tried one before. I would write straight things, like I wrote plain mysteries, not necessarily humorous ones, and short stories and everything. So I thought I would try. At chapter 8, I dreaded sitting down. I thought if I had one more person sigh and say, I love you, I couldn't stand it. So I threw in a dead body. I just threw somebody. I said, okay, you're dead. And it just picked right up. So I personally have to have a dead body around. I don't know what that says about me, but that's the truth. So I enjoy mystery writing, even though I have written other things, especially if you're going to pay me. If you pay me to write something, I will do it for you, I guess. But it's usually not going to be a novel because I don't have to tell you. A novel is a huge commitment.
Yes, it is. It's a commitment of time and effort, but it's also a commitment of imagination.
Yeah.
To live in that world and to build out that world before you even start.
Right. That's true. That is very true.
So I always talk to folks about the, gravitational pull of an idea. When you just something comes in your head and then characters and setting and everything else starts building up and it becomes what will sustain a novel. How did you, you've written 2 long-running series, but how did you start with the idea that you knew was going to sustain itself for at least a book, never mind a series?
I thought very carefully before I started the Alvarez Family Murder Mysteries. I knew I wanted to write about a female detective. I knew that. And I also wanted to write something about an integrated family or immigration. In this series, the protagonist's father immigrates up from Mexico. And this is, of course, all before everything around here happened. This is 20 years ago when I started writing this. And this is, he was a brilliant young man. He came to America and Palo Alto on a scholarship, and he went to Stanford. And what I did was I wanted to show the success part. I didn't want to show the struggle. I think there's a lot of books about struggle and how people acclimate and become part of the new social work of their new country. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to pick up when they were successful because I was writing a comedy or a funny, lighthearted series, but also I wanted to go into more subtle things. The relationship between Lee, who is the protagonist, who is a Mexican-American and takes after her father, and the mother, who is a Palo Alto blue blood. And if anyone is old enough, like me, to remember the actress Dina Merrill, she's this very cool, blonde, very together, never had a bad hair day. That's her mother. And she takes after her father, who is more, first of all, she has dark hair and she looks completely different than her mother. So they have a conflict that comes from just being 2 different women who don't have any idea what makes the other one tick. But They love each other, and they are going to try. So I believe that if you continue to try to be positive in your life, that you can accomplish a lot. And that's what I try to do. And I try to make all of my characters have those traits. So that's what I was going for. So I have her. First of all, she's insecure, Lee's insecure, but beautiful. I mean, she has this gorgeous mother who never seems to get anything wrong. That can be very threatening. And she likes clothes. So I was going antithesis or against the Sue Grafton, although Sue Grafton, I should only write that well. But Sue Grafton had a protagonist who didn't get along with her family. She had a black skirt that was somewhere in the back of her closet, but she was always feeling bad and down about things. And I just didn't want to go there because they live in my head, and I didn't want to be down about things. Surprisingly for me, and I wasn't sure how this was going to be taken, the series hit or became more popular immediately. I think there's other people out there who want to see a more positive thing about life and don't want to be a part of someone's continual suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. Not that Sue Grafton wrote about suffering. She didn't at all. I mean, I was so enthralled with her that I used her work as a stepping stone, if I may say that. Okay.
Yeah. No, again, as you said, reading deeply and well in the genre and reading for enjoyment and then rereading for how did they do that is part of what makes you a better writer. But you embrace in that series the cozy of it. I mean, that's exactly, justice is going to prevail. There's going to be a wonderful group of secondary characters who may be more important in other books than but who are part of this. And you've developed this world that people want to go visit.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's what I really want to do. I don't want someone to be at the door of my novel and take a deep breath going, well, I have to go in now, as you have to often do in situations that are difficult. There's going to be difficulty. There has to be, or else you have to have conflict or you're not going to have any story. And also I have the cat. Now, I do have to say that I started this 20 years ago. But at that time, the only person that I knew that was writing was Lillian Jackson Braun, who I loved her stuff. So I wanted to have all of my books have an animal in them, whether it's a dog or a cat, or in the Circus books, you've got elephants and giraffes and stuff like that. And they're all treated well. And if they're not treated well, it is turned around and it is addressed. So I try to do that too. Let's try to make this a good thing, even coming out of possibly something that's wrong for a while. So I have a cat, Tugger, and Tugger is very big in all my books. And he's based on my own cat, Tugger, who passed. And I wanted to, in my own small way, immortalize him. So I did. And as you know, Julie, when you write a book, you live it for that moment. And those characters are very real. And so when I write these books, Tugger, who's been gone now, I don't know, 16 years or something, is very real for me. And so it's such a joy. It gives me joy to write these books. And I think when you have joy in your life, it comes out to the reader in some form or other. Yeah. Oh my God, I sound like such a goody two-shoes.
Well, when you started that first book, and you said, it's 20-year-old series now.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea? Did you know right away it was going to be, if Lillian Jackson Braun was a somebody who you were looking at, then a series must have been in your brain that this was something I'd like to do. But did you plan, what was going to happen over the series? Did you sort of think about, okay, I'm going to, over the next 10 books, this is going to happen or anything like that? Or did you just build this world and then keep moving with it?
I'm not that organized. I really wish I was Julie. I just knew I had more to say. I knew that when I ended book one, which is Murder is a Family Business, I wanted to continue it. I wanted to find out more of, now for the first time, the patriarch is dead. So when that is, as you know, comedy is based on tragedy. So it opens kind of at the end of the father dying unexpectedly from an aneurysm. So everybody just is reeling. And this murder that Lee stumbles across, believe it or not, like reunites the family again. And they become more connected. So I knew that I couldn't end just there. I knew I had to show where they were becoming connected and keep going and keep going and keep going. And the brother is on the autism spectrum. He's not, he's a little weird, brilliant. He's brilliant, but a little difficult every now and then. And he becomes much more socialized. We have him meeting a young woman that he falls in love with. The mother becomes more connected to her daughter, which she never was that connected before, and which can happen. She had her favorite, that was the son. The father had his favorite, the daughter. So now the father's gone and the daughter and the mother are like, what? So, and then I wanted to show the cat growing up because it was just a little kitten. And so even though 20 years later, Lee is still 34 years old, only in fiction, right? but the cat, every time 3 months happens, it's in a 3-month cycle. The cat becomes a juvenile, a teenager, whatever, and we show that. So the cat's the only one that, although he's not 20, he's now cat. Tugger is probably maybe 2.5. I'll make him 2.5. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. So this is interesting to me because I love talking to writers about this. Book time is different than real time. Sometimes when an author writes a book and a book comes out every year, it's a year in the life of the character. But often in long-running series, it's a shorter period of time.
Right.
I spoke to an author recently who said when she first started her series, she skipped the summer, and she's still angry she can't get those 3 months back because it was like, wait a second, who knew it was going to run this long, and I need those 3 months. But for you, so if it's every 3 months, a book takes place, even though it's been 20 years, that's, I could do the math quickly here, but, roughly 3 years. That's a different, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You are totally right. Only as I said, we've never had Lee's birthday. She's still 34.
Yeah.
And I hope nobody, minds that. I just kept her 34. I liked being 34. I vaguely remember it, but I really liked being 34. So I just made her continually 34. Her mother's 56, and who I also love. I love her mother. Her mother is a combination of my mother-in-law and my ex-boss. They were both tall, aristocratic blondes who, in their own way, kind of intimidated me because they were so perfect in every way. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to grow you into a character for me.
I also just want to underline something else you said. You knew right away there needed to be conflict and growth for these characters, and it couldn't be one-off. It had to be, the brother grows over time, the mother changes and grows over time, and it can be forward and backward and sideways stuff, but the characters can't stay stagnant. So even though they're in this bubble and the characters stay the same age, you're still seeing them grow because that's what readers want in cozies. They need to see some growth.
Definitely. I actually gave a talk yesterday at a cat club, and unbeknownst to me, there were several people there who read my work, and that was just a wonderful surprise. And they actually knew the motivation, or one of them knew the motivation of every single thing that my characters were doing and how they were growing, because she turned around and said it to a man who had not read my work and said, well, you'll like this because, and then gave him a total handoff of, and sometimes sat there, I wrote these, so I went, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I did that. And it was very interesting, but readers are not stupid. They really, when they invest this time in a book, they're paying attention because they want to, and they like what they're reading, or they don't, then they throw it across the room, and that's fine too. But fortunately for me, enough people read my work that they are invested in it. And I respect that, and I know that you do too. We have to respect our readers and not try to pull anything over on them, and not try to say, well, they'll never pick up on it, because they do. They do.
Right. And trust them to follow you. Trust them when you mention something that they're going to remember this was mentioned, or it may come in, trust them because they will follow. And this is the hard work for the writer, to make sure the narrative holds together after the 15th draft, but trust the reader.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And respect them. And respect them as people. Most of the demographics for my book are older women, very intelligent, educated. And then surprisingly for me, because this also happened yesterday too, so it's all very fresh in my mind, there are a lot of men who like my book, and which makes me very happy, because there is this school of thought that men and women are people and that they have more in common than not. And I try to ascribe to that, even though it took me 40 years to teach my husband to load the dishwasher. I still think that he is every bit as bright as me, if not actually brighter. And he's also very nice and he sings. I'm just throwing this in because he's a doll. He's a great singer and stuff like that. So I'm fortunate in my home life, and I try to put that out there in my books.
I think e-readers were one of the best things that could happen to men who like to read cozies because they could read them on the train and everything else. And I am gendering something, and I am being very stereotypical. But, I had friends who said, listen, now, no one can tell what you're reading, so you can read whatever you want. And it opens it up to people.
I had not thought about that. Of course, if you take the hard copy of a book, it's out there and everybody can see what you're reading. And that's been my experience too.
Right.
But you're right. When you do an e-reader, also, this is just me. I like saving the paper, and also they are more inexpensive. And so I am, and most of my sales are ebooks. But you do have the people that want to have it in their hands physically, and God bless them. And whatever you want, whatever works for you is fine with me. But I hadn't thought it. Maybe that's why, because it's been within the last 5 or 6 years. You're making me think now, Julie, right? The last 5 or 6 years that men have really been reading my work and writing me or telling me, coming up and telling me that they like this. And I've always been, wow, men are, because I didn't think that men would read it. I thought it was mostly for women, but that's really not true, because you're writing about life.
Right. And everyone needs a happily ever after these days, right?
I sure do.
So, I want to talk a little bit more about writing. And then I do want to talk about publishing, because you've been talking about your readers and understanding your readers. And this is a really important thing, as you're transitioning into publishing. But talk to me about how you write a book. Do you have an idea? Then, and I will say, just as a preface, some folks might have seen it. I moderated a panel of Ghost Crime, and Heather was sitting next to Daryl Wood Gerber, who is one of the most she plots, but she also organizes, and she's got Bibles for her different series, and does tons of research and has things all over. And Heather, this was one of the fun things. This was a great panel, but one of the fun things was the way the two of you played off each other because you were aghast. She pulls this off, but you've written 20 books. You keep track of what happened in all the books. Talk to me, though, about starting a new book. Talk to me about what the process of writing a book is like for you.
For me, an idea will come, and usually it's because I've read an article, someone said something, and sometimes just a phrase will come, and it will start my mind going. And I will give you an example. One of my more popular books, and I'm not totally sure why, is A Wedding to Die For. Now, it has, I love the book, of course. They're all my children. I love them. And it is the one that is under option and has been under option for a while. Try to get an option when you're really young because they can go on for years. They can just go on. But anyway, but I was reading an article in National Geographic about a family in Egypt who were all, this was a village in Egypt, and one of the people had found a tomb of a lesser known royalty. He took a piece from the tomb and sold it on the black market and made money. And because everybody in the village was related, they all shared in this money. Now, move ahead, because this is decades. And now you have 60 people. By sharing this money, they did the really smart things. I'm not saying I condone this at all, but they did the smart thing. They all became educated. They didn't spend the money on booze and whatever like that. They got educated, and so they became more and more involved in the social work and more important in the culture. The reason now this went on for 60 years, so it was passed on to generation. And at the end of 60 years, the only thing that really brought them to light or stopped it was one of them got really greedy. He was the assistant curator in one of the museums, and he decided to take a real piece of work, a real artifact, and substitute it with a replica and sold it. And when he was found out, and when that happened, all of this came to light. So this was this huge article in National Geographic, and I couldn't even believe it. But as you know, truth is stranger than fiction. So I decided, because it was a family-oriented thing, and I write about a family. So I thought, well, wait a minute, Heather, why don't you transfer that idea to Mexico, which I did, and you can have the Aztecs, the Tectors, whatever you can do, and I did. And that was my sub thing there. And I just took that story and ran with it. So there was this idea, and of course I threw in the stuff that you have to have more than one level of things. And I had a wedding that wasn't going to happen because this kid the groom got arrested, and blah, 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 blah. And so they go to Mexico, Lee, and of course her mother, who was always crowding in on these things. They go to Mexico, and they discover this family. So I have them discovering this family. And it was so much fun. I loved it so much. Of course, I have to tell you, the research. I had to do tons of research. And then I found out that it was entirely possible that the Toltecs did come up as high as San Miguel de Allende, which I hadn't known, which just further added to the story for me. And it started with this one article. It took me 10 months to write it, and that was kind of fast. I usually take a year, but I was having so much fun.
Well, and the research, and also, when you're writing about another culture, the research into that, right, and to understanding and to making sure you get those details right does take time. And it takes them how much time it takes. You can't rush that.
No, you can't at all. in fact, for the Drop Dead Temple of Doom, and you will note that most of my titles indicate that this is going to be lighthearted. The Drop Dead Temple of Doom took me. I sat down. I got this idea once again, an idea, and I thought, oh, this one was brought on by the fact that my one of my best friend's daughter is now. Was like an Indiana Jones or an Indiana Jane in Guatemala. She was running through the jungles and jaguars and discovering, just an amazing story. So I just took that and wrote it. And I sat down to write, and I realized that I couldn't write a word because I didn't know a thing about the Mayans, the ancient Mayans. I didn't know a thing about the jungles of Guatemala. I didn't know a thing about the growing of coffee or the world of orchids. So I just sat there and said, okay, time for a little research. And 8 months later, it took me 8 months to do enough where I was comfortable enough to sit down and write. But the reward was not just an award, because I will say there are so many good books out there that kind of get hidden and don't win awards, so you can't go by that. But archaeologists, there were several archaeologists who wrote to me and told me that what I had put in the book was on the nose, and thanked me for it, thanked me for being really real with the truth, so that when I was writing my fiction, it was grounded.
Well, this is such an important part of this, is that when you're doing this research, you're not necessarily going to info dump it for the reader. This is so that you're grounded as the writer, right, to create a world that is true.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you're going to spend 10 pages explaining how to find an artifact and get it, but you're going to know enough, right, that the tools are going to be right, and that the interest is going to be right, and that the procedures are going to be right.
Right. Right. Well, I'm not writing a how-to book. If I was, I would have to go there. But I'm not. So it's the end result, or sometimes what the catalyst that leads to whatever. Those are the two things that I'm going to use that for. In fact, the very first book, I had to do research on the Coast Guard and their ships and their boats. And oh my God, that just took forever. I wound up using one sentence. One sentence. It took me months to find all that. And I did one sentence in the book. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. You have to know more about whatever you're writing in order to find that truth somewhere in there, and what you need of the truth.
Yes. Yeah. No, this is, so you mentioned that you write a book a year. It takes you a year to write your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people write faster, and do it. But this is, your readers know that this is going to take you a year. You also, you write standalones and other things.
Right.
When you're writing, do you focus on one thing, or can you switch projects?
I can switch projects, but I find, in fact, I guess I do. If you talk about, do articles and blogs and stuff like that count? Do they count?
I think that they do, although those could be considered another, marketing part of the brain. So for books, can you work on 2 books at the same time?
No, I can't. And I think it's because I'm not as organized as some people are, that I am a pantster or a skirtster. I don't know. But I am, I write in the moment, so I'm there. And I don't think I can, although one time I had a deadline. This is when I was with a publisher. I had to turn out another Persephone Cole within a certain amount of time. And I actually finished that book in 3 months. But it took me, I was working 12, 14-hour days, which is just, I'm too old for that. No, I can't do that. But the in between, I would go back to the Alvarez family, because I didn't want to lose the thread. I didn't want to pick it up and go, now, what's this one all about? What happened here? I didn't want to lose it. So I was doing that, but it took a lot from me, and I didn't enjoy it. That's when it became work. And you have to do work, absolutely. And I realized that. And so that summer, that's what I call my lost summer. So my lost summer, when I was writing this Persephone Cole thing that just took everything from me. I never went out to dinner. I hardly ever saw my husband. It was amazing. Go ahead.
No. I think that this is, it is hard work, but you gotta enjoy the work. I mean, if you hate writing everything about it, then there's you gotta do other things, right? I mean, don't do that to yourself.
Oh, yes, don't. And I've heard about people who don't like writing, and then I wonder how they can do it well. How can you do anything well if you hate it? I don't. I mean, it's hard enough to do it well when you love it, but if you hate it, good grief.
So let's talk about publishing.
Okay.
You talk to me about your publishing road and what you wish you'd known early on, or about that.
My timing was off in the publishing world. When I had an agent, and for the first book, and it was being presented around to publishing houses. And that is when the internet and everything was taking over, and people were starting to self-publish. It was when the world of publishing was not falling apart, but certainly in a very big transition.
Yeah.
So when I got a publisher, it was a very short-lived thing. And then I got another publisher, and it was a very short-lived thing. And then I realized I had to wait a while to get the rights back for my books. But I realized that if I worked really hard at this and was a forerunner of what I was publishing, self-publishing, when a lot of people wouldn't touch it. They really thought that the only people that would publish were people who were too bad a writer to be able to get a good publishing house. And I just went beyond that. I didn't even stop to think about that because I knew if that would stand in my way. I knew that was the only way I was going to get my work out there again was to self-publish. I also knew that if I didn't do it the right way, the way the big boys do it, I was never going to be able to compete. So I took all of the stuff that they did for me and I jobbed that out. In other words, I did do some of the covers for myself, and I have to tell you, at best, I am mediocre. But I loved it. But I'm so anyway. So I have people who do the cover. I have 2 editors. I have beta readers. In other words, all the stuff that the big boys have, I tried to have and keep my books up to their standards. That's what I tried to do. And any success I have enjoyed is through, I think, being persistent and not letting, because everybody else, all of my friends, were all published. They were all with that, but they weren't selling. That was the amazing part, was that a lot of them, they would maybe get, 2 books a month sold or something. They weren't, and the books were really highly priced. You have no control over that. You can't control how much the books, the ebooks, the what do you call it? The paperbacks, whatever, the hardcovers. You can't control any of that. Also, it does get handed off to editors, and you often have no say in what they do. Now, I don't have any say in the corrections they make, and if they tell me that this sentence is badly constructed, I go there because that's their job. Hire people, trust them to do their job. So That's what I've tried to do. And it was not an easy road. It was not, because I would try not to look at the faces of my friends, especially in the beginning, when they would find out I was self-published. I would try not to, because I knew they didn't approve, even though my books were selling more than theirs. That was not the point to them. There is a process. Everybody wants to have an agent and be published. And I'm not saying those days are gone. They're not. but there is that other option. And I went the other way.
Absolutely. And I do, it's not a long timeline about this shift, but indie publishing is a viable option. And you're right, there was such a stigma about it, 20 years ago, but now it's a choice that people make. It's not a fallback, it's the choice. People have the decision tree of what do I want out of my publishing journey. And so given what I want, this makes more sense. And for many folks these days, they're choosing the indie path. But but your story is something I've heard from other folks too.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yes. You have to just do what you feel is right for you. And also remember, I was getting older then. There's an understatement. And it takes a long time to get the agent to have, and also when they send books out or whatever, it's usually one at a time. They don't throw them out there. And by the time you get published, it can be 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. And I just wanted things to go faster. I wanted to make up for lost time because the first book took a really long time to finally get to finally get out there. Then it didn't die on the vine, but it kind of just took a backseat to everybody else's books being published. So I wanted more control. Yeah. And I have many of my friends who do quite well and are wonderful writers, have decided to take back some of their work, or after the publisher went out of business, after their agent went into publishing, everybody has their story, decided to self-publish. So, and it's a lot more work. I also didn't mention I have a publicist, and she's wonderful, Julie Smith. I love her. She's terrific, and she helps keep my work going and gets it out there. And if your work isn't out there and people don't know about it, if readers don't know about it, they're not going to buy it no matter how good it is.
Right.
So you need that end of it too. You need that end of it. And I know something about it. I'm not good at a lot of it. I'm not good. But I don't think if you can do everything, great. But job it out. If you can't, job things out and trust the people you job. Do your homework, find out who are good people, who are trustworthy, then hand it over to them and trust them to do it.
One of the things, again, I use this term all the time, but if we were writing back and forth, I would be underlining things or highlighting it. So highlighting this for folks is that such an important point. You don't have to be good at how this works. No. But you do have to know how this works.
Yes.
And it's really an important ability to be able to say, yeah, I'm not good at this part, but I know what it takes to do this part, so that, the knowledge gaps, you got to fill them, and you have to understand how the business works. I think even if you're going traditionally published, you have to understand how the business works and how marketing works and everything else, even if other people are going to do things for you, because this is your business. This is your career.
Right. Exactly. And it is a business.
Yes.
And when you were saying that, I have a friend who is just a brilliant writer. Brilliant. She doesn't write mysteries. She's brilliant. But she has short stories published, but she doesn't want people to know where she lives or how to reach her. In other words, she's trying to be a recluse. And that is really tough. And it's working. I've actually talked with her, but people have to do what they have to do. But I've said to her, this is holding you back. People have to know how to reach you. Also, you need a website. We could talk about something like that. You really need a website so that people out there can go to this, find out something about you. If she doesn't want that, it seems like it's too intrusive for her life. And that is going to it's holding her back. And she is brilliant. She's a brilliant writer.
Well, and this is the time, too, where you can make up a name and have the website, have a contact form. Like, you shouldn't have your email out there, have a contact form. But you're right, people, and play the role. So I talk to people, I've been talking to people recently about pitching their books, you know, and there's so many introverts who are part of, you know, who are writers. You got to you got to play the character of the of the novelist, and you don't have to tell the world everything. Decide what are the three things you're going to talk about in the world, like, you know, and talk about those. But they don't need to know your whole life. You know, you can choose who this persona is, but you're right. You need to have a public persona because people are going to look for you and they need to find you.
You know, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to take this and ask you, Julie, you just said that maybe like a pseudonym. Do you think that that might work for her?
Yeah.
That if she just made up a name,
yeah,
and I may suggest that, because I'll tell you, when you have friends the way we all do, she is really so wonderful, and I love her work, and I would like to see her have a modicum of success. So you think, if you don't mind, I'm going to say, I'm going to give her that advice.
Oh, no, I think that pseudonyms can, I mean, people who have a career, you know, they're lawyers, they're going to write under a different name because they don't want, you know, they don't want the world, or people who are psychiatrists or who are, you know, teachers or something. It may need to have a different name, and then have headshots in that persona. Like, you know, I mean, just be different, or have a caricature built of you. I mean, own that new persona. But I think that for somebody who's a brilliant writer, that could be a comfort zone. Maybe they never go to a conference. Maybe they never be seen in public, but they can exist on the internet and blog and just own that persona. When you have different publishers, or you're writing different series, or different things happen, there are a lot of reasons for people to have different names. And it used to be a secret. Now it's sort of an open secret that if you do enough research, you can realize it's the same person. But this is part of the marketing challenge, right? Is when you have success in one world, but you're writing, you know, you write cozies and you're very successful, will they buy dark suspense under your name? Maybe,
right.
Maybe, who knows?
Well, I think for me, I think the answer is no. And that's why I think my book, the Circus book, has not done well. Also, it was originally named, I had originally called it Death of a Clown. And I did not know that people had fear of clowns, and also that Stephen King was going to come out with this It thing, where this clown is, you know, killing children and doing that. So it died on the vine, even though I won the award. I changed the name. I didn't change a word inside. I changed the name to Murder Under the Big Top. I put on a new cover, and bingo.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to be willing to change what you're thinking about things.
I just want to go back to something you said early on, because I find it fascinating. You know who your reader is.
Yes.
And do you do surveys? Like, talk to me about how you get to know your readers. I mean, you do events and you talk to people and you get feedback, but, you know, this is something else, and you are in advertising. So I think that being in advertising bleeds into how you can think about things.
Oh, probably it did. Yeah.
Right? You're like, okay, this is the person I'm talking to. These are the three readers I have, and this is the person I'm talking to. She's, you know, older woman. She's, you know, this is where she is, and we can, you know, we can assume that that's true of cozy readers. But you seem to really know who your reader is.
Yes, and occasionally I'm surprised by the 16-year-old boy who picks it up and likes it, because once again, I am writing about life and relationships and people like that. But I did some research. I wanted to know who was I reaching out to? Who did I want to read it, but who was going to read it?
That's right.
So I did research online. I also went to the library and did some things on that. I talked with other cozy writers because, you know, Mystery writers will just share everything with you. They're so wonderful that way. And that's how I found out that my demographics were going to be between 40 and 55, educated women, usually with at least a 2-year degree. I mean, it even got that specific for me, and intelligent. And also, but what I've also discovered is that a lot of women who opt to stay home and not work out and work in the workplace, but work at home, really love reading about what's going on out there in the outside world. So the demographics have to be altered. I think you have to just talk to people, which I do. I used to do a lot of bookstores and stuff, and I would ask people, why do you like this? What's appealing to you about it? In fact, I did it yesterday at this thing. I asked them, I was thinking about the book I'm writing now, and this war in Iran might have some influence on it because it takes place in Egypt. And I said, well, what do you think? Should I predate this? Should I say it's summer 2025? Right. Do you think I can get, and they would give me feedback. And you're talking to intelligent people. And it doesn't mean you're going to take the advice, of course not. And it doesn't mean that they're right on the nose for you, but you get the options. And I'm always into options. What are my choices here? And I like that kind of look on life. What are my options?
Yeah. What are my options? Well, Heather, this has been a great conversation and an interesting conversation and could go on forever, but thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you. And I wasn't nearly as funny, but we were talking about serious stuff. Writing comedy is serious. Serious stuff. When you write humor, it's a very serious thing. And I take it all very seriously. I take me very lightly, but I take my writing very seriously. That's how I do it.
Well, thank you. That's another pearl of wisdom. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today. Sisters in Crime is about community. We were founded to advocate for women crime writers, and we continue that mission by fighting for equity in the crime writing community. Sisters in Crime is an international, inclusive organization for all who write and love crime fiction, mystery, thrillers, and suspense. Join us at sistersincrime.org and make sure you subscribe to this podcast.